first JOJOlands video. This is going to be weird talking about for like the next 10 years, I hope. So I guess to start off with, for the people that just don't know or you haven't seen it yet, Part 9 JOJOlands is a thing now. A brand new part to the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure franchise is, you know, being created right in front of us. It's kind of weird because, you know, the series for a very long time was just kind of a niche thing in Japan. While popular in Japan, it never really got outside the borders of Japan very often, but thanks to the anime, a lot of people know about JoJo's now. So it's kind of weird and special at the same time this part's coming out. It's like, I don't really know how to describe it, to be kind of honest. I'm just kind of going off the dome here, but like, there's almost this air of wowness or awe to it. Like, I'm basically awestruck here. Like, this is kind of weird and really interesting to me. As technically a new fan, I have never experienced a new JoJo part being well written. So I think it's a kind of exciting time for a lot of people, including myself, because, well, there's a new part in front of us. I'm really hyped for it. And luckily for me and the audience in front of me, there has been stuff and news being presented, at least at the current point in time I'm recording this, to be, you know, explained or theorized about. Enter the preview image. Aside from the Ultra Jump promotion, we get to see the background of something happening, and of course in the foreground, the new Joestar protagonist. I am assuming here that's because of the star in their hair. And oddly enough, I don't actually want to talk about the Joestar first. I actually kind of want to talk about the scenery behind him. Some of the translations for this preview page go as the following: tropical island, a volcanic lava in the background, palm trees in a blue sky, cheerful music, surfing, and the roads are maintained well and the cars come and go. A lot of people that have been translating this are assuming that it's Hawaii, maybe, but I will add here, it technically can be any tropical environment near the equator or in the equator. And note, if my editor did not put it on screen, this is all speculation at best. I'm just theory crafting and having fun here with the information provided to me. So just FYI, nothing is concrete here until we see the first chapter / there is an announcement. Okay? Cool. And with all that flavor text / you know, kind of build up to whatever this plot is going to be like, of course we kind of get the idea or premise of this part is the best way I would describe it. Very similar to JOJOlands, the story is about breaking a curse, or Steel Ball Run's, the story is how I learned to walk again. This story's kind of text or starting text is a story about a boy becoming a millionaire on subtropical islands. Note, there is major lore implications here, but I'll talk about that soon. And of course, the second biggest object on the page, or the preview page, is of course the boat sinking with 2 people on it, presumably a random character that we'll eventually meet, and the Joestar. And that really just sums up the preview image in general. We get a place, a Joestar, the name of the series, and some type of scenario happening in the background. And of course, the premise of this part, of course, being a boy who becomes a millionaire on a subtropical island or islands. So with all that being said, speculation time, brought to you by me, Metas. So I'm going to speak about the Joestar now. I wanted to save this for this portion of the video because it's kind of complex and there's a lot to talk about here. But on December 4th, thanks to the JoJo Wiki, an interview was translated where Araki basically says Part 9 is going to be about the Joestar bloodline, and Joseph Joestar, the character that we saw at the end of Part 8, that version of Joseph, is supposed to be the foreshadowing to the descendant in this story, or descendants. So with that being the idea here, this means that the Joestar that we see on the preview page of JOJOlands is supposed to be a descendant of Joseph Joestar in some way or fashion. Side note here, technically Gappy, or Josuke from Part 8, is a descendant of Joseph Joestar, with a lot of shenanigans being involved. So technically, to get into this idea here, the Joestar that we're seeing could be the result of, you know, Gappy actually growing a pair and using his pair, if you catch my drift. But depending on the placement and time of this character, this being the new Joestar here, it can technically be from Joseph himself or one of his descendants, or technically probably even somebody above him, as in a earlier Part 9 video discussion I did back on the channel, Johnny Joestar had a lot of kids and his kids had a lot of kids, so there's a lot of possibilities here to talk about, just FYI. But we know that Joseph Joestar in the original universe was a bit of a clown, I guess I'll just say that. So there is a high possibility here that Joseph in this timeline / universe is also a bit of a clown. So of course, there is some classic JoJo shenanigans about. The ones that you can't really predict for, but are just funny to see happen in the moment. Now, I'm probably going to go with Araki here and say it's probably going to be some type of descendant of Joseph, literally, and not Gappy's whole situation slash lore himself. I feel like this is probably going to be a actual Joestar, most likely being some type of great-great-grandson or great-great-great-grandson, due to the fact that usually Araki likes to place his stories at least similar to the time zone he's writing them in or the exact year, leading me to at least the most logical conclusion, unless Araki throws a curveball at me here, that the Part 9 Joestar is some type of descendant of Joseph Joestar on a quest to become a millionaire, or maybe accidentally becomes a millionaire because of, well, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure plot. And that's all I really have to say about this protagonist, other than him being a descendant of Joseph Joestar somehow, and him eventually becoming a millionaire, because I would assume that he is the boy in the sentence. He's shaping up to be a very interesting character to read about. And side note, his design looks pretty cool to me, but knowing Araki and how his art style changes and him just literally drawing characters over time, I'm assuming that this character's design here is not final and will rapidly change over the part's years of being written. So, the plot. What's it going to be about? This is probably another one a lot of people are also trying to figure out, and I do have my take on this as well. Note, my speculation is on two assumptions. One, it takes place in Hawaii or some other tropical environment or subtropical environment, and two, the Joestar protagonist is some type of descendant of Joseph Joestar, being, you know, maybe a grandchild or some type of great-great-great-grandchild. So, if you remember JOJOlands' plot pretty well, you know that the Rokakaka slash Lokakaka grows in tropical environments thanks to the lore Araki gave to us in Part 8 JOJOland. And during the final battle of JOJOland involving Wonder Review, the head doctor, who is technically Wonder Review, did give a presentation on the medical properties of the Lokakaka, as it was one giant scheme to make the rock humans of that part extremely rich, that being Toru and Group. This idea slash plot point was never really brought up again after the fact. It just kind of stayed there until, well, the ending of the part, where it was never brought up ever again. This entire presentation that the head doctor gave just kind of was in the background of the fight and never was really kind of brought up again slash, you know, elaborated on. Just kind of just sitting there in the background. On top of that, the origins of the Rokakaka aren't really explained that in-depthly. We only ever get to see where they come from, and that's about it. Leading me to speculate this part is going to be kind of the origins of the Rokakaka slash heavy involvement of the Joestar bloodline. Kind of mirroring Part 5 in at least some aspects, as eventually we get a answer slash explanation on why and how the stand arrows kind of work. Possibly mirroring the Rokakaka in some way if this potentially happens. And yes, I know this is basically all an assumption that the stand arrows and the Rokakaka are similar in some ways. Maybe. But, and I mean a very massive but here, this is also JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and Araki always throws curveballs in his plots because that's just how he rolls. And I could be 100% completely wrong here. As in the same interview that discusses the Joestar bloodline and the descendants of Joseph Joestar, there's also a funny kind of interview quote here that Araki basically likes to make mysteries and never answer them, which might be a subtle way of him saying, I'm gonna make up plot points and stories and never answer them because I'm lazy. Maybe the Rokakaka will never be explained ever again, and we might get something totally new in this Part 9 story, not involving anything from JOJOland or Part 7, maybe, which I doubt, but of course, this is Araki's story and he could do whatever he wants. This is a new part and I'm speculating off a literal preview image, so I'm just saying this all for, you know, the sake of the video. So don't, you know, hold me up to anything, please. So a quick TLDR for my meta's theory slash speculation here. More than likely, a descendant of Joseph Joestar is looking for the Rokakaka, or this fruit that is basically worth hundreds of millions of dollars due to its medical properties, and is looking for it in a subtropical environment for some reason, probably going to be explained in the plot, and is trying to become a millionaire. This will also lead into some probably stand shenanigans in this part, and probably involvement of rock humans as well, as Araki, for whatever reason, spends a lot of time explaining rock humans and really elaborating that they kind of exist everywhere where power is. And since this fruit is worth a lot of money and somebody just literally blabbed about it in front of everybody, that being Toru and Wonder Review, I would assume a lot of rock humans in the real world are now looking for this fruit for the power and wealth that comes with it. And I will explain this again. This is all fan speculation at the current point in time, and I, knowing how Araki actually writes, am probably 100% wrong, and it will all be funny looking back at this in like 5 years, maybe. I only mention that because Araki is known for literally writing in Mormon Jesus into his story and literally making a superfruit that can cure physical illnesses. So I don't know what's going to happen in part 9. It could quite literally be the most wild and best part in the entire franchise. I pray that it actually is, but you know, speculation is speculation. Let's just have fun here in the comment section. Now, the only things here that I'm still curious about are the mysterious person that is next to the Joestar in the boat. I have no idea who this is. Quite literally could not tell you. Another thing is, I actually don't know the location to heart. It could be Hawaii. It could be literally any tropical island around the world / subtropical island around the world. Like I've been saying throughout this entire video, it's literally just a preview image that barely gives us anything. We don't even have a name for the Joestar. So our ideas can run pretty rampant here. Overall, my expectations for part 9 JOJOlands is pretty high. I do expect a banger to come out of Araki's fingertips here, as I'm assuming this is probably going to be his last part, as Araki is 62 at the time of the recording of this, and if it really does last 10 years like it did with JOJOlan, he will be 72, and I don't want my mangaka to be writing at 72 in that age. He can still draw, just don't write, as drawing manga is pretty taxing even if it's on a monthly basis. And I want to say again, everything I said in this video is speculation, so all my theory crafting and stuff is not actually true. It's just me giving an idea out to possibly figure out the plot of JOJOlands, which I'm probably definitely wrong at, but you know, I like to take a shot in the dark. Anyway, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, stay hydrated. See you in the next one, ladies and gentlemen.